anybody know what the Second Amendment says word for word? The Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Because of my extensive research and proximity to the issue of handgun violence, I will be advocating for a new, tougher handgun law within the District of Columbia. I would like to remind everyone that handguns are the leading weapon of choice when it comes to homicide in the District of Columbia. In 2008, the Supreme Court of America struck down a 33-year-old handgun law in the district. Again, in 2010, the Supreme Court struck down a similar law in the city of Chicago. According to SCOTUS blog, both of these cases were decided by a 5-4 vote. Considering the above evidence, the district can right the wrong of the Supreme Court by implementing a brand new handgun control law that would constrict the scope of handgun freedom and would also put harsher penalties on those who choose to break this law in the District of Columbia. There is a need for the new handgun law in the District of Columbia, one that is multi-pronged and relevant for the District of Columbia. I would also like to show how this plan is advantageous and practical to the District of Columbia. As we all know, the District of Columbia has a handgun violence problem. I know that here in State College, Pennsylvania isn't exactly the best place to lobby for this new law. However, many in the audience can relate to the plight in DC, having lived near violent urban areas. So I would like to reintroduce the problem of handgun violence to the entirety of my audience, and would like to focus on what I consider my hometown, the District of Columbia, and the scary statistics that are coming out of this city about handgun violence. After talking to Lieutenant Brule of the Metropolitan Police Department in the District of Columbia, I was informed that of the 143 homicides, 109 of them were caused by handguns in 2009. Over 75% of the people killed in my hometown were killed because of handguns. Because of this alarming statistic, I plan to advocate for a new, stricter handgun law in DC, in an effort to keep DC a place where I would want my kids to grow up. I have done extensive research and have mapped out a new handgun law for the District of Columbia. My proposed law will be implemented in the District of Columbia for the sole purpose of saving lives. After reading the Firearms Control Regulation Act of 1975 and reading the Congressional Bill H.R. 6691, the bill replacing the Firearms Control Regulation Act, I have found a new law that takes the best of these and cuts the worst. My new handgun law will have three main components. First, my new law will recriminalize the possession of unregistered handguns. I know it might sound crazy, but Congressional Bill H.R. 6691 decriminalizes the possession of unregistered handguns. My new law makes possession a felony and places all offenders on a no-buy list, which prevents these citizens from ever buying guns again. Second, my new law will make registering a handgun in the District of Columbia much more expensive. According to the Metropolitan Police Department, the total cost of registering a handgun in the district is a mere $60. My new handgun law will increase this fee. First, the registration fee will increase from $35 to $100. Second, the fingerprinting fee will be raised from $13 to $50. And lastly, the firing and weapons check fee will be raised from $12 to $50. I understand that having a firearm is a constitutional freedom. However, like many other constitutional freedoms, I plan to heavily tax owning a handgun. These new fees will raise revenue for the District of Columbia and will also be more of a deterrent from people having multiple handguns. Finally, the new handgun law in the District of Columbia will place limits on the amount of ammunition a person can buy at one time. It will also increase the time between registering handguns. Currently, there's no limit on the amount of ammunition a person can purchase in the District of Columbia. My new handgun law will change this. First, the law will allow an individual to only buy 100 rounds of ammunition in one day. Because of this quota system, 700 rounds of ammunition is the max an individual can buy in a week. Secondly, the Metropolitan Police Department states that an individual must wait 30 days between registering handguns. My new handgun law proposes doubling this time limit to 60 days between registration. The new law doesn't infringe on the Second Amendment and only further protects citizens of the District of Columbia. However, if you're not sure about it, let me show you the advantages. I will also show you my opposition's argument. Over the last 7 years of the Firearms Control Regulation Act of 1975, the homicide rate within the District of Columbia has fallen fell from 232 to 186, according to the Metropolitan Police Department. Many parts of my new law were similar to this bill, yet intensified. This is the reason I believe that this new law has the potential for drastically decreasing the rate of handgun violence in the District of Columbia. As you might have noted, the handgun law will increase the cost of ownership of handguns. The increase in cost of ownership in handguns will increase the funding to the Metropolitan Police Department. However, there are many detractors of this new bill, mainly the NRA, the National Rifle Association. The NRA is the same group that brought about overturns in the Washington and Chicago handgun laws, according to Adam Cohen's article in Time magazine, published 2010. These detractors have found previous gun laws too constrictive on the Second Amendment, according to Linda Greenhouse's article in the New York Times, also published in 2010. I, however, would like to counter with the fact that this new handgun law still upholds the Second Amendment and also provides further safety to the citizens in the District of Columbia. Detractors of this new law might bring up the argument that implementation of this new law would cost too much for the city, and there would be no way the city could afford it. However, as you might recall earlier, this bill increases registration of the cost of handguns over 3 times. Others might say that the cost of registration will deter registration. However, the first prong of this bill will make carrying an unregistered handgun a felony. After hearing the specific points about my new handgun law, I hope that you all can see how easily this law can be implemented so it can start to take a positive effect. My hometown is facing an extremely dangerous problem with a 3-pronged law, a plan that is practical and advantageous. I believe that we can resolve this problem. There are so many problems in this world that we can't solve yet. However, I believe that by enacting this law, we can take the first step to stopping handgun violence in the District of Columbia. Thank you.